countdown to the last comic shop in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, hey, it is the Last Comic Shop podcast. Yay.
That's right. We are opening the shop, but keeping the windows closed and the door shut because it's snowing outside, and that snow might be evil. Might be evil.
Nuclear winter. And we're keeping the lights on for folks to come on in, including those oldie moldies who might have a prayer of knowing what we're talking about today on the show. I did not. No one I talked to had any idea about this one.
Oh, no, you did a little bit. He recommended it on a previous episode, Chad. I'm the host with the most, Eddie Larson. That is Chad Smith. And it is another year of JA, thanks to our co-host, J.A. Scott, who's been picking some great books for us. And this one was a recommendation of his on an episode recently. He started talking about the Eternauta and how he was watching it on Netflix because evidently they came out with a TV show. And he's like, we should read the original comic from the 1950s. I said, let's do that thing.
And I tell you what, man, J.A., I mean, the sportos, the motorheads, the geek sluts, the bloods, the wastoids, the dickheads, the dweebies, they all adore him. They think he's a righteous dude, and they might be right. So thank you, sir, for that.
But in addition to doing the Eternauta today, it is our 249th episode of the Last Comic Shop podcast. Next week will be our 250th. We'll have Ethan on, and we'll be reading some Jonah Hex from All-Star Western. But this week, we thought that we would treat all of our Last Comic Shop fans with another tournament. That's right. If you didn't get enough tournament action when we did the last ice cream shop earlier this past summer, we've got another great tournament lined up for you today. And by the way, for those people that are keeping score, Cookies and Cream actually did win. It came in.
Good job, Cookies and Cream. All the rest of our picks were kind of boring. We had like chocolate, vanilla.
Yeah.
Was it butter pecan?
Butter pecan.
Yeah, so that was the dark horse of them. But come on, chocolate and vanilla it's so boring that Cookies and Cream just won by default.
I will say chocolate came in second place. Chocolate does have its fans out there. But let's see what J.A. says when this week we're going to have it battling out in this tournament of the top 16 superheroes of all time. Now, I didn't come up with this particular list of these top 16. I went on the interwebs, and I think Ranker had a pretty solid list when I looked at it. So thanks to them for at least doing some of the legwork.
Thank you, Ranker, for ranking things.
But yeah, we're going to go all the way to the number one. So we're not going to put it out to a vote, and there will be no ties. So we're going to go ahead and start off with the number one. Guess who number one is?
I'm guessing it's either Superman or Batman.
It is the Caped Crusader, Batman. He has appeared in over 14,000 comic book issues, but he's going up against the Punisher. The Punisher came in at number 16. So I think this is pretty simple for folks like Chad who doesn't like the Punisher, but let's go ahead and go through the motions. Chad, who's your pick?
Punisher.
Punisher.
No, I lied. It's not the Punisher. Punisher sucks. It's Batman.
J.A., are you in agreement that Batman is moving on over the Punisher in terms of best superheroes?
Well, one uses all the guns, and one doesn't use a gun, except now he kind of does sometimes to be edgy. But to be honest, the best Punisher is when he's Frankenstein, so it's got to be Batman.
Batman's used guns before.
He has. He used them way back in the early part of his career. He used to just throw people off the top of rooftops and break them.
Yeah, he got Darkseid that one time, too.
Oh, yeah. Still, it's hard-pressed to have Batman not moving on. Over on the other side of the matchup, we've got the other of the big two from DC, Superman, coming in at the number 2. And this is an interesting matchup because he's going up against his cousin in number 15 of Supergirl. Some people might want Supergirl to move on just to be different, but we'll see. We're going to start off with J.A. Who's moving on from this particular matchup?
Yeah, so I think 10, 15 years ago, it would have been Superman, because Supergirl was always just sort of a pale imitation of Superman, and then her biggest claim to fame was that she died in Crisis and with that epic cover. But since then, I feel that she's really come into her own. There's been a lot of great writing surrounded by her. She's a lot easier to write for in that she doesn't have to adhere to all these tropes and norms that are imposed on Superman by DC. I'm thinking of that great Tom King run that's going to be turned into a movie. So I'm going contrarian on this one. It's Supergirl all the way.
It's hard not to vote for Superman. I know that's going chalk, but has awesome issues where, I don't know, he turned into a lion for some bizarre reason. I don't know, Supergirl didn't turn into a lion. But Chad, you're the tiebreaker here.
Yeah, no, it's Superman all the way. As much as I love Supergirl, it's Superman. It's especially coming off that movie. It's, we're all riding high on our Superman buzz, and we're still looking up for Superman. We'll have time to look out for Supergirl next year.
Moving on to the 314 matchup is we've got our first Marvel character coming in with Spider-Man. He's going up against that aquatic superhero, Aquaman. So evidently Aquaman is the 14th most popular superhero out there. He has an enviable task going up against the wall crawler. This is super simple for me. Spider-Man all day, every day. Chad?
Yeah, Spider-Man. These aren't hard yet.
These aren't hard yet. No, they're not. But let's see if J.A. makes it hard. Do you like to talk to fish, J.A.?
No, I mean, Aquaman's not even the best character that goes into the ocean. That's Namor, so Spider-Man all the way.
Spider-Man moving on into the next round. On the other side, I think this is the first challenge out there. We're going to start off with Chad with this one. This comes in at number 4. That's Wolverine. Going up against number 13, one of his torchbearers, Daredevil.
I'm definitely going Daredevil. I think there are way more great Daredevil stories than there are Wolverine stories. I think Wolverine's a part of that X-Men milieu. He's got Weapon X and Old Man Logan and a bunch of so-so in between. Daredevil gets Frank Miller. Daredevil gets Mark Waid. Chris Samnee gets that Scott McDaniel art in the mid-90s. Gets the Innocenti run where he goes through hell. Daredevil gets that Charles Soule run where he fought a guy named Ten Fingers, and it was stupid, but it was still awesome because it was Daredevil.
I think I'll let J.A. go next. J.A., what do you say?
Yeah, this is hard for me because I actually agree with a lot of what Chad said, but some of those standalone Wolverine stories are pretty good. His first time to go to Japan, Weapon X, the X-Men story where he goes up against the Reavers is on the cross and Jubilee kind of takes him down. 3.
Old Man Logan, too.
Old Man Logan.
You hate Old Man Logan, Andy.
I do, but a lot of people like that story, Chad. A lot of folks
what Wolverine has going for him is that his comic book movies have generally been better than the Daredevil comic book movies.
I'm going to remind you about Wolverine Origins, the Wolverine.
Okay. Wolverine Origins and all the Ben Affleck stuff cancel each other out. The Wolverine is good. I stand by. I like the Wolverine.
All right.
I'm going to go with Wolverine, but I also like Daredevil. And I agree, Wolverine works much better in the team setting than the individual setting.
I mean, this is probably the first really tough matchup we've had. I do genuinely like both of these characters, and I feel like the Marvel Universe would be lesser if either of these characters were missing from it. I think they're very important parts of the overall tapestry. But I'm going to go Daredevil here because I feel like Daredevil has a lot more, I don't want to say upside, but there has been so many crazy and wild things that they've done with Daredevil over the years. To Chad's point, like, they don't care about this character, so they will do some kind of funky stuff with him versus Wolverine, who's now become one of their flagship characters. So kind of like Spider-Man, we can't do too much with him, although they kill him all the time, which is
they took his nose for a while. That was weird.
But no, any character who made up a fictional twin brother to hide his secret identity from this girl that he was dating at the time with Mike Murdoch. Plus, it's going against the chalk. It's a 13. It's moving on. We now got a dark horse in this race. Let's move on to the 5-11 matchup. Keeping with the Marvel tip, we've got Iron Man versus the Hulk.
So I would say that it would have been Iron Man if we had voted based on like the first couple Avengers books when the Hulk was just a big gray then green rage monster and Iron Man went from a giant tin can to that cool look with, you know, his classic costume. But he's a big rich man playing with toys, and those rich guys who play with toys, tech billionaires, the Hulk.
But I'm going to also vote for the Hulk. I don't think Iron Man was really a great character until Robert Downey Jr. came along and gave him a face and a voice. I think a lot more people know of Hulk. As far back as even if you just want to say the 70s and the Incredible Hulk show with Lou Ferrigno, there's so many good runs with the Hulk. And the Sal Buscema art, so good. So good. That's my Hulk. But Chad, are you going with Hulk with us?
Yeah, Hulk smash puny Tin Man. The Hulk and dealing with his anger and his rage, it's something that's so relatable. And I would argue that Hulk is probably Marvel's number 2 character underneath the Spider-Man in terms of the general population. Having those Hulk hands, which might be the most awesome comic toy produced in the last 100 years, it's the Hulk all the way.
So Hulk is moving on for his eventual matchup against Batman. Is Hulk going to throw a car at Batman? Is Batman going to have to jump through a window? We'll see. Moving on to the other side, and this is another pretty awesome matchup here. We've got the number 6 of Wonder Woman going up against the number 12 of the original Robin. That's right, Dick Grayson. We're going to go ahead and start off with Chad with this one.
Ooh, I am torn on this one. This is the first one that's really hard for me, honestly. Just because I've used to talk a lot of smack about Wonder Woman, how there weren't that many great Wonder Woman stories, but like I keep reading really great Wonder Woman stories. But Robin's my guy. Like ever since watching the Batman 66 show with my grandma, I've loved Dick Grayson. I've loved Nightwing, that transformation, the Teen Titans in the 80s and 90s, like the Robins that have spawned off of Dick Grayson's influence. I've been a fan of all of them. There hasn't been a bad Robin in my book, only because of my personal affection. Like, I've dressed up as Robin for Halloween. I have not dressed up as Wonder Woman. That was one of my favorite Mego toys I had whenever I was a kid. I'm going to go with Robin, but I definitely can see the argument for Wonder Woman.
Yeah, one's a sidekick, and one is Wonder Woman.
He's not saying, he doesn't have to say anything more. He's going with Wonder Woman. So it's down to me. Wonder Woman versus Robin, and I will agree with Chad. This is probably the most difficult of the matchups that we've had thus far. And like Chad said, I have opened my eyes to the plethora of really good Wonder Woman stories out there. And so as much as I love Robin, I love him, as Nightwing. I love the Tom Taylor run we read. It's Wonder Woman. Like, I have to keep the Trinity alive. Like, if we've got Superman and Batman, Wonder Woman has to be on this list. And I really do want to look at the matchup of Wonder Woman versus Superman. Moving on to our last two of the first round, we've got Captain America versus Thor. This is another really hard matchup for me. These are two of my favorite members of the Avengers. Arguably, Iron Man has always been the lesser of the big three when it comes to the Avengers. And as much as I want to say Thor, because I really do love the Walt Simonson run and the Jack Kirby run, I love the Al Ewing run that's currently going on. There's been a lot of great Thor books over the year. I think I've said on this show before that when Captain America, and I'm talking about the Steve Rogers Captain America, when he was missing from the 616, whether it was when he was killed after Civil War, whether it was when he became old and gray, there just seemed to be an extremely important part of that Marvel tapestry that was missing. I really do think that you need Captain America in order to make the entire Marvel engine work. And so I think he's arguably one of the most important characters they have. J.A.?
Gore was right.
Oh, man.
But what he was right about was how awesome Thor is. You get all the mythology. You get to play with cosmic forces. I feel like Captain America is just a little bit too on the nose sometimes. And I want Chad to have to pick between the two of them so that we get a more interesting podcast.
All right. So it's down to you, Chad.
Yeah, this one also was a tough one. I had to think about it because for each character, I have defining storylines. There's a Jack Kirby on both sides, whether it's Mad Bomb or it's the Jack Kirby, Thor and Galactus and all that other stuff. There's the Brubaker Cap run versus the Simonson Thor run. Both, I think, are some of the best of comics, and you're doing yourself a disservice if you haven't checked them out. And so it comes down to the stuff in the middle. And at the end of the day, I feel like one of these characters keeps having the same story told. They live, they die, they repeat. They live, they die, they repeat. And of course, I'm talking about Captain America because Thor is f***ing awesome. And so you can have more fun with Thor. Jay alluded to all the Norse aspects that you could play with. You get Loki with Thor, who's way more interesting than any of Captain America's supporting characters. Captain America is a great symbol, but Thor is the party god. Thor is the god of thunder. Thor is the one who I think walks away with this.
So the final matchup of the first round will be two Titans from the DC universe with Green Lantern versus the Flash. Green versus the red, the Christmas colors. We're going to start off with J.A.
Nobody cares because they both suck.
Wow. Well, you heard it here, folks. I couldn't disagree more. I mean, I think that there's at least one of these characters I think easily I'd vote for. But who sucks less than J.A.? You got to pick one.
Well, Green Lantern sucks less because there's more of them, and you get Guy Gardner, who's fun. So, yeah.
I'm going to go the opposite tip. I'm going to say that Wally West stands out for me as one of the best characters of all time. His time as being the Flash is something that I really treasure deep in my heart. I really don't have that connection to any of the Green Lanterns. Thanks to Wally West, Flash is moving on for my vote. But Chad, who you agreeing with here?
Do agree with J.A. They both kind of suck. I'm still mad at both of these characters because they had legacies and they had moved on. And they're like, no, we're going to bring the old guy back. Thanks to John Engel, I think I appreciate the Green Lantern mythos a little bit more than I had previously. He's kind of turned me on to some of the more intriguing aspects there. At the same time, I don't know that I've read a Green Lantern story that I've connected with more. And that includes the Darwin Cook's New Frontier, which I count as a Green Lantern story. But I don't think I've connected more than I have with Flash and Wally West and the return of Barry Allen when it wasn't really Barry Allen. And just the weight of the legacy. And since then, I've come back and learned to love a lot of other Flash stories. So also, at the end of the day, the Flash TV show had the Tom, and Mike and Tom eat snacks. So Flash takes it.
Thanks to the mates, again, for making this easy. All right, moving on to round two. And again, I think we'll start off with the bottom of the rankings here. These were the lowest two coming in. It was, again, Daredevil versus the Flash. I don't think we need to belabor this. Chad, we moving Daredevil on?
Yeah, we are. Daredevil.
All right. Daredevil is moving on, outpacing the Flash to move into our final four. On the other side of the bracket, we had Spider-Man versus Thor. I'm going to vote for Spider-Man every single time. I told you I would vote for him all the way to the number one spot if I could. So Spider-Man for me. J.A.?
Yeah, as much as I love Thor, Spider-Man in that epic black costume.
There you go. I'll go Spider-Man in that epic red and blue costume.
So we got Spider-Man and Daredevil. We're going back up the top. This is probably the most fierce matchup of this second round. It is going to be Superman at number 2 against Wonder Woman at number 6. We'll start off with J.A.
It's got to be Wonder Woman because she's just not as boring as Superman.
Wow.
I mean, the only time Superman was interesting is when they killed him.
Except for the movie that you just gushed about like a couple weeks ago.
Yes, I know. But
you were like, "Oh my gosh, this is so great!"
It was so great. It was so great. It was great to finally have a Superman movie. But put it up against Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman movie. I don't know.
All right, he's saying Wonder Woman. Chad,
you got to factor in that second movie though, too, dude. Ooh, that was rough.
Superman: The Quest for Peace. Just gonna leave it there.
Kneel before Zod, buddy. Kneel before Zod. No, I'm going Superman. I actually, for a long time, I probably held similar opinions to J.A., but I've come around within the last year or so. And I am loving the dad Superman out of the Rebirth era with John Kent.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm going chalk. I hate to say it. I love Wonder Woman. I really do think that Wonder Woman's got a lot of great stories out there, and thanks to this program, I've been able to enjoy some of them. But equally, I could say the same thing about Superman. And I think that my journey with Superman has come so far from thinking he was the most white-bread, terrible character on the face of the planet to actually seeing so much nuance, so much wonderful ideas that you can do with the Man of Steel that I think it would be a disservice not to put him in the final 4. So Superman's moving on. Finally, we've got Batman versus the Hulk. Just like one of the episodes of the Last Comic Shop podcast that you can listen to from our Evergreen archives, featuring one of my favorite comic book panels of all time. I'm just going to sort of throw it out here. It's going to be the Hulk for me. Batman is water. He's that Bruce Lee. He can fit in any situation, but to me, that's a detriment. I'd rather have a character that actually is a character. The Hulk is clearly defined as to who he is. You may make him smart sometimes. You may make him tactical sometimes, but at the end of the day, Hulk smashes. Hulk gets mad. Hulk is the unstoppable force. Yeah, he's moving on to the finals for me. Chad?
Yeah, they can still make Batman movies. For reasons I don't understand, you're not going to get a Hulk solo movie, so the sequel has to show up 20 years later as Captain America 4. I go back to what you said, where Batman is water, and you can put Batman in so many different scenarios. And whereas the Hulk is relatable and, there's something that makes the Hulk super popular amongst all swaths of life, at the end of the day, there's just something cool about Batman that puts him over the Hulk in my mind. So Batman's going to take this for me.
All right, J.A., you're the tiebreaker.
Yeah, there's a reason why Batman's number 1. So it's Batman. Let's not out geek ourselves on this here. It's Batman.
All right, fair enough. So here it is. The final 4, we're moving on to this. We've got Batman versus Spider-Man. Spider-Man all the way. Team Spidey. I'm voting for it. Chad?
Yeah, I'm going to go Spidey too.
Doesn't matter.
Would you have voted for Spidey otherwise or no? Batman still is the number 1 for you.
I probably would have gone Spider-Man.
All right, so we got Spider-Man, and then on the other side, we've got Superman versus Daredevil.
Daredevil.
I'm curious what you're going to say, Andy.
I'm going to say Superman. So I'm putting you on the spot.
All right, I'm going to say Daredevil. There's a ton of more interesting Daredevil stories. Superman just gets his origin over and over and over again. Daredevil's origin gave us Daredevil and the Ninja Turtles.
It's amazing to me how in a tournament we can make one argument and then in the next round, when it fits our needs, then all of a sudden we're taking a 180 and all of a sudden Superman is the blandest character on the face of the planet.
He's vanilla to Daredevil's amazing. Cherry Coke.
It's amazing to me, but regardless, Daredevil's moving on, so that's our finals. Spider-Man versus Daredevil.
You're making Chad pick his kids.
I know, these are my ride or dies.
Greatest superhero of all time, according to the Last Comic Shop, in this particular tournament. Spider-Man's going for me. He's one of the big 3. It's Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. Those are the ones people know. And so he's the only one left, and he's the one that I've loved since I was 3 years old. So Spider-Man wins.
I'm going to pick Daredevil just to put Chad on the spot.
That's where we're going with this. This is what makes a good podcast. So ride or dies, Chad. You got to dump one of those books. Which one are you picking?
So if I have to legitimately stop and think about it, which book has had the better stories over the last 30, 40 plus years? I'm sorry, Spider-Man, the first 36 issues, the Stan and Steve Ditko stuff, it's fantastic. It's what comic books should be. That carries out through the first 150 issues, all the way through the Ross Andrew, Jerry Conway, like all those things are wonderful. But then Spider-Man, after the death of Gwen Stacy, spins his wheels for 50 years. And Daredevil, because they don't care about Daredevil, they keep letting writers do what they want. Do you want to end up with Daredevil in jail? That's fine. The next guy's going to pick up with Daredevil in jail. He's going to leave you in a different spot. He's allowed to be interesting. Whereas Spider-Man, the basic core of Spider-Man is great, but when was the last great Spider-Man story? Kraven's Last Hunt?
I mean, yeah, you're right. He doesn't have like individual stories. I think we've caught on record there.
Yeah, it's the soap opera, but I think Daredevil wins. Daredevil deserves to be the head of the table.
I couldn't disagree more. I wanted Spidey, but hey, these are the votes. That's why we did it with just 3 folks, so there wouldn't be any ties. That's why we didn't throw it out to you as Last Comic Shop fans. Daredevil wins the tournament of the greatest superheroes of all time. Do you agree with that? Let us know in comments to this episode. Did we get any of these rounds right? Do you have a bone to pick with any of our picks? Air your grievances in some of those comments. But we'll be right back with more Last Comic Shop right after this. We have a Read Pile review to get to. It is the Eternauta. It has nothing to do with any of these comic book characters.
No, it doesn't.
It has to do with snow and like many-figured aliens and giant things that look like elephants. I don't know. Stay tuned.
Hey, it's Mikey Wood, frequent Last Comic Shop guest and collector. And as a collector, I'm always in need of boards, bags, long boxes, and more to house all those comics. That's why I use promo code LCSPOD to get 10% off my orders at bcwsupplies.com. Not only does it get me a discount on BCW's already low prices, but I know using LCSPOD at checkout is another way I can show my support to the Last Comic Shop podcast in their continuing mission to bring fans together under that big comic book tent. So if you're in need of comic book supplies, head out to bcwsupplies.com and use promo code LCSPOD today. That's LCSPOD.
When you're done listening to this podcast, check out mine. My name is Dave, and I'm the host of Beer in Front. My podcast is just enjoying the beer that's in front of you. Sometimes we forget about a classic beer while we focus on the new trendy thing. What I try to do each week is to enjoy an old school classic or have a beer that has potential to be a classic. I'll also talk about events of the day, I'll add my spin to things, and each week there are people that really annoy me, and I'll call them out as the jag-off of the week. That's Beer in Front, available wherever you listen to podcasts.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. And today we're going to take you on a journey through time, through space, throughout the globe even. We're going to pick up something that's described as a seminal work of Latin American literature. It was published originally in 1957 through 1959 as it was serialized. Ultimately, could have cost one of its creators their lives. We're talking about the Eternauta. So, J.A., why don't you give us a rundown about the creators of this particular piece of work?
Yes, the Eternauta, or in its original Spanish, El Eternauta, was created by Héctor Germán Oesterheld, originally with artwork by Francisco Solano López, and as you said, it was serialized from 57 to 59 in Hora Cero Semanal in comic strip form. It was then redone in 1969 by Oesterheld, but with a different artist and he changed the story slightly and made it a little bit more political, and that also might have led to him being disappeared. But we are focusing on the original publication of this, which was the 57 to 59 version. So what happens? And what is this all about? Well, who is the Eternauta?
Good luck, Andrew Larson. What do you got for us, Andrew?
Well, it is 300 some pages. So again, Fantagraphics did put this out in a collection for American audiences several years back.
Which won Eisner?
Yeah. It's a little bit more difficult to find, but if you really want to find it easily, you just go to Comixology. You can get it for free through Comixology Unlimited right now. So it's easily read by anybody that's listening to this week's episode. But it is 300 pages, so there's a lot of story here. But really, is there? Because there's also a lot of repeating, which I'll get to in some of my initial thoughts. But the story is about Juan Salvo. He is the Eternauta. He appears out of nowhere in front of the author of this particular book, who plays himself. And the Eternauta says, I have a tale to tell you. And he tells him the story about how he was playing cards with some of his friends. And all of a sudden it started snowing. And people went out in the snow and they started dying. And so they had to build themselves suits so that they could go outside in this snow that was killing everybody. And eventually they found out that this snow was actually the first step of an alien invasion. The Eternauta meets up with some other survivors who are part of the former Argentinian army. He joins forces with them. They shack up a stadium for a little while, and they start fighting bugs. And these are like the foot soldiers of the aliens. So you had first the opening barrage, which was snow. Now you've got these kind of cockroachy things that are walking around.
Giant cockroaches.
Yeah,
they're giant. They're enormous. They're enormous, but they're
like the size of bears. No.
And they've got like light rays that can destroy anything. But they eventually capture some of the light rays and start turning the tables on the bugs, and that's when things start escalating from there. They start making all the people in the army hallucinate. Next thing you know, you're introduced to the folks that control the bugs, which are these like multi-fingered alien guys with sweep-back hair that die if they get afraid.
They look like Ganthet from Green Lantern.
They do! They really do!
But with massive hands, with 15 fingers on a hand.
Exactly. It's like Dr. Seuss. They have all these fingers coming off their hand, and you wonder the bone structure of that hand and how that works. But regardless, you think they're the main bad guys, but they're not. They're just the lieutenants of the foot soldiers.
They're literally the right-hand man.
So then they're like, we defeat these guys. That has to be the end of this alien invasion, right? No! Then there's these giant mammoth, half elephant, half
dinosaur-like.
Just call them what they are, Gerbos or Gonzos.
They're just
Gerbos.
Enormous monsters. And then they beat those. And eventually they find out that all of these things are being controlled by something that they don't even know what it is. It could be a light or something, and they beat that. And then the book kind of resets, and we get to tell the same story over and over again, except this time Juan Salvo manages to escape into the time stream, and that's how he appears in front of this author and tells him the story. And the ending was kind of weird for me, to be blunt, but that's the 10-cent synopsis. Alien invasion, lots of different threats that Juan Salvo and these Argentinian army folks have to overcome, and it's incredibly serialized. I don't know if any Last Comic Shop listeners out there remembers when we did Flash Gordon. We did the original Alex Raymond Flash Gordon strips. The same problem that happened with the Flash Gordon strips kind of actually also happened here, which is the fact that every single strip kind of has to end with a cliffhanger, because that was the nature of the serialized storytelling. Like, they had to have something at the end to be like, what will happen next? Because they wanted you to read or pick up the next, I don't even know if it was a newspaper or a magazine or what have you, but they wanted you to pick up the next thing. And after a while, if you read that page after page after page, it can kind of get repetitive. I won't lie. There were parts of this where I was just glossed over. I read it via Comixology on Comixology Originals, and I'm glad that I did, because with that, you have the ability to basically look at the story panel by panel, which allows you to kind of zoom in on the action and not read it in kind of that 9-panel grid, which it normally is, which is, I hate to say, a little bit hard on the eyes, and it allows you to enjoy the art a little bit more. But I've said a lot. I'll hold the rest of my comments. I want to really hear from J.A. because this was his pick. What made you want to read The Eternaut, and what did you think once you read it?
Well, I saw the Netflix show, and then I did some research into the book, and I found out how important a piece of literature it was, and comic literature at that, in South America, not just in Argentina, but in all of South America. And apparently, if you go to Buenos Aires, even today, you can see murals all over the city with the Eternaut image, with the head in the scuba suit. So it got me interested in it. And then I started reading it. The first couple of pages really hooked me. So then I suggested we read it, but with the caveat, Chad, that let's do it when we've got a couple of weeks break, so that you're not having to read it in 1 week's go, because it is a bit dense, and as a serial, it gets very repetitive at times, because they're assuming you maybe didn't read the last chapter, so they sort of have to catch you up on what happened and then move the story forward slowly and end on a cliffhanger, and then repeat that process again in the next one. And so it goes like that for a long time. It's not something you could just pick up and flip through, especially if you're used to modern comics and hyper decompressed storytelling. Just like 200 pages to really cover what could probably be done in like 20 pages of text.
Yeah, I real quickly, J.A., when I was reading this, I had a really hard time of figuring out like how long in like their timeline, because it seems like Juan Salvo doesn't eat, sleep, go to the bathroom. He moves from like one crisis to the next, without like taking a break at any point.
Yeah, couldn't be more than 2 days until he skips to the end.
Because he's away from his wife and child for so long, but he doesn't. Oh, but let me go on this mission, or let me go on that mission.
I don't know how many times they fought the dude with all the fingers. Like they beat him, and then they're like, well, let's beat him again in the same way. Like, I don't know, 40
Well,
pages
there's another
later.
one. There's a different guy who looks exactly the same.
Chad, now you said you struggled. You struggled mightily, I feel, with this particular book. Why? Why?
Man.
Other than what we've just said, like.
So, okay, I will go on record. This week has been a challenging week in the personal life of the old Chadster. Just, boy, could I have used a pick-me-up, with the book that we're reading. This is not that at all. Not only is it 300 pages of serialized storyline, like, I get that. I understand the nature of the serial, the newspaper strips, the magazine strips, whatever it was. And I actually thought the art is really fantastic in this. I mean, you get a grounded sci-fi story of survival, which I can see why there are so many fans of it. But at the same time, like, there was such desolation and depression, and not only did it become a slog because of the repetitiveness, the defeatist nature of some of the characters. There's, the scientist guy. Vivalli is this guy who can fix just about anything, but every time they're like, oh, we can do this. And he's like, yeah, but it's only going to work for so long. And like, he was such a depressing defeatist guy. And like, I can separate the work from emotionally what was going on, but I'm like, it was not what I was looking for at this particular time. That's not the fault of the book. It's a war story. It kind of reminds me of Starship Troopers. Do you guys remember Starship Troopers in the 90s? That's what this was like. It felt like what it would be like to live through that isolation, that desolation, the not knowing what was going to happen next, and be like, well, we're probably going to die, but we should do this anyway. Let's keep going. And just the perseverance of man to come together and to fight some of our baser instincts, like all that is in there. I'm not saying it's not great, but I would be lying if I said that I liked it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, it does. There were a lot of reasons why I wanted to like this book. I really did. First and foremost, not only is it sci-fi, which I genuinely like, not only is it also a newspaper strip, which I genuinely think those are cool, and I like when they're collected in these kind of things. But it also has kind of an international feel to it, which is great. And from a historical perspective, as J.A. pointed out, it's an important book. It's an allegory for things that were going on in Argentina in the late 50s. And so as a result of that, you get some of these political veiled statements about some of those things. Folks coming into Argentina, trying to take over. There's these robot men, the guy that pulls the strings, the dude with the many fingers, turning people into zombies.
That was a repetitive thing. Oh, they're making us hallucinate and think it's something else, but it's not the thing we're thinking it is. It's actually this other thing. These robot men, we think they're men, but they're not men. They have robot things in their backs and their necks. But we can pretend to be the robot men if we take the little spikes out of the back of our necks until the robot men figure out that we don't have the spikes in the back of our necks and that we are in fact not robot men. Oh, no!
Oh, look, they don't have the spikes in the back of their neck. They must not be robot men. But look, the spikes are now in their hands by the guns, so they're robot men again.
So all that being said, I was trying to look for the threads, right? I was trying to say, like, the robot men must be the folks that just went along with folks from Nazi Germany going into Argentina. I think there was U.S. influence in Argentina at that time, like a lot of foreign influence. And so folks were like, I'm not Argentinian anymore. I follow this country secretly, and so you can't trust me. I was trying to look for all that. But what kept on getting in the way was like the depressing nature of this particular book. And there's a lot of sad sack characters. The one character I want to say that I really, really loved was this dude named Franco. He was like this buddy that Juan Salvo met in the military. Juan would be like, we can't do that. We'll be doomed if we go over there. And he's like, screw it. Grab that car. Grab that grenade. Let's go. Let's do this. And he was
I just threw 3 grenades. Figure it out.
It was such a breath of fresh air that I was waiting for him to come back, because he was the only one that was like, I refuse to be defeated by these aliens. Like, we'll do this. And I thought that was what I wanted.
You had mentioned how the best way to deal with this was to spread it out over a long period of time. I'm actually going to argue the opposite. It's like a depression Band-Aid. The best way to do this is get in and read as much as you can, and then set it down and then read as much as you can again until it's over. Get it over with as quickly as possible. Don't belabor this one.
One thing none of you mentioned was how after these 300 pages of this serial depression and war and fighting the aliens, all their various henchmen and hands and gerbos and bugs, was that the Eternaut goes back in time and is telling the story, finds out that he's telling the story before it all happened, runs home to see his wife, who he hasn't seen because he's been lost in the time stream, and then suddenly gets young and forgets everything, so it just repeats.
Yeah, I was glad that you brought that up, because that, to me, I think that was a little bit of the straw that broke the camel's back for this book for me. Like, that's the reason why I'm going to give this a lower grade. Not only was the end of the book like kind of just a repeat of the beginning of the book. Oh, the snow started again. Oh, the aliens are back. Oh, now it's even worse because now all of my friends have been turned into robot men and I've got to run away. But then it was just like, none of this matters, because like it's just going to repeat and we're just going to go back to the beginning of the story anyways. Like,
yeah. But then the author did with a different artist. He just went back into the same story again. What the hell?
But I think that's the point, and that's the very political nature of it, right? He's pointing out that all this violence begets violence, and nothing changes.
It's very true, and I think that's a good place to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with more of The Last Comic Shop right after these messages with our ratings for The Eternaut, as well as recommendations. So stay tuned for that.
What happens when 20-something Madison is zapped into old-time radio shows? No technology.
Why won't it go to voicemail?
No Starbucks.
Don't call yourself a coffee shop if you only sell drip coffee.
And no one is PC.
I don't need no lift from...
Were you about to say woman? Because I'm wearing a gun and I have no idea how to use it.
Madison on the Air serves to highlight the way we were and the way we are today, with original radio drama scripts adapted to include the modern-day Madison as she joins famous characters from radio's past, including Sergeant Joe Friday.
Just the facts, ma'am.
I've never actually said that.
Marshal Matt Dillon.
We're not having a shootout with a 10-year-old kid.
I'm too woke to be a part of this.
Superman.
I didn't realize how cold it would be flying like this.
I have to get into the higher atmosphere.
And many more. Visit us on the web at madisonontheair.com or find us pretty much any place podcasts can be found.
You talk so old-timey. I have no idea what you said, but it's adorbs.
All right, we're back with more of The Last Comic Shop, and it is now time for ratings, where we hope that you don't start seeing radioactive snow outside of your window, because if you do, then you want to make sure that you got plenty of rubber suits and some beans and, I don't know, tape for the windows and an export fan. And his buddy Favali or whatever, he was a real genius, but he also was a real sad sack. Just every time he opened his mouth, I was just like, what's this guy going to say next? How is he going to make me sad? What is our rating scale for this week, J.A.? Make me happy.
Well, it's going to be radioactive snowflakes.
Oh, good.
That's pleasant enough. I was curious whether or not those snowflakes were cold. I would have liked to think that they were hot, given radioactivity is traditionally a hot zone.
To be fair, we're calling them radioactive, but they weren't really radioactive. They touched you and they killed you.
Yeah, they were just alien snow.
Yeah.
We don't know that it was radioactive per se.
But that's obviously the allegory.
So we've got radioactive snowflakes. I'm going to go first. As I mentioned in the previous segment, I really wanted to like this book. And from a certain perspective, I'm still happy that I read it. I feel more cultured. I feel more complete as a comic book aficionado because I have experienced the Eternauta. Again, I think this is an extremely important book from a historical perspective, from an international perspective. If you want to broaden your horizons and take a look at something that was defining somewhere else other than America, then you should definitely read the Eternauta. But I would be lying if I said that this whole book was a walk in the park. It wasn't. It was a slog at times, and there were lots of times where I just glossed over things and looked at the pictures. I will say to Jay's point, though, I really, really loved like the first, 25 pages of this before all the aliens showed up, when it was just a survival story of a bunch of folks like stuck in a house and trying to survive with evil alien snow that was killing everybody outside. It gave me some COVID flashbacks. Again, folks making sourdough and afraid to go outside and afraid to, all that. And so there was a relevancy to me when him and his friend are going around with the wheelbarrow, and eventually they find the truck, which helps them get more supplies to their house. And then they start running into people that are also fighting for the supplies. And are they going to be helping us or hurting us? That was kind of a thrilling part of the story. It wasn't until actually where it became like Monster of the Week and how is the army going to fight this again that I was just like, repetitive. And so I can't give it more than probably a 2.75 overall. I'm really still glad that I read it. I do think there are great parts of this. The art, the beginning of the book, some of the battles against the aliens are pretty good, but genuinely, it's a slog to get through. Just take that into mind as you're reading it. Chad.
You bring up some great points, especially about the beginning of the story. Going back to my own personal COVID experiences, I just remember there was a Friday the 13th where we were going to go home for 2 weeks to stop the spread. But it turned out the world changed, and it changed suddenly. And all of a sudden, all the rules were different. And that's what it's like in this story. Like the one friend goes outside to go be with his family and doesn't make it. They were playing a card game when the world was one way, and by the time they stopped their card game, totally different. And then the trials and tribulations. I did think this was really good in terms of how grounded it was when it was grounded. And even the sci-fi elements still felt real. Like, I go back to G.I. Joe comic books in the 80s. Like, there were definitely certain fantastical elements to G.I. Joe comics, but the thing that people liked the most about it, that it felt real. It felt like real soldiers in a war. This feels like real people going through this and being thrust into these positions. And so I'm going to go a little bit higher than Andy. I didn't enjoy this, but I thought it was very good. This is not light, summertime reading, but if you want to dig into something and feel like you are becoming more cultured, if you want to dig into something to help you understand cross-cultural references, like the cover with the whole black and white design, like how cool looking is that? Like, now if I ever see the Eternauta out there, I'll know what they're referring. There are definitely lots of cool, interesting parts of this. It's just wrapped up in something that's so incredibly desolate that it makes it tough to read. This is a book that got the author and his family disappeared. This is serious stuff. This is serious art. And it deserves to be respected. So I'm going to give it a 3 out of 4 alien snows. Is that what we're going with? It's for how grounded it was. How the art was beautiful. And as Andy alluded to, there are times where you can kind of like zone out a little bit and just look at the pictures and get the story. It's a really great storytelling, and it's not super wild action all the time, but it's all there. It's all what you would want if you want this sort of thing. It's just I don't want this thing. 3 out of 4.
Yeah, it's interesting to me, Andrew, that you said the best part was that beginning, because that's actually how this story got its start. He wrote a treatment, and the original story was sort of a Swiss Family Robinson. What happens if you're boarded up in a house with an alien invasion and you're stuck and you can't go anywhere? And that was the story. And then because it's serial and you need to keep telling a story, it expanded beyond that, and that's where you got the Gerbos and the hand and all the other mythology and what's going on. I've read some reviews by people who are from Buenos Aires, and it's really written about Buenos Aires. So all the streets and all the locations are obviously real places in Buenos Aires, and you can go to them to this day. You can go down La Paz Avenue and say, oh, that's where the Gerbos were knocking down the buildings there. And there's the square where they had the big fight with the cockroachy bug things. And the art is to your point, Chad, is great. It's all black and white. It tells the story almost as well as the words. So Francisco Solano López did an incredible job. If you read the retelling of it, the 1969 version, that's a different artist. It's much more expressionistic. It's a little bit more abstract. So this one is very grounded in that sort of serialized sci-fi genre. If you like old Flash Gordon, I'm glad we read it too, Andrew. Both of you have said this, it's an important story. It's not the easiest story to get through, and sometimes it feels like a slog, but you can see why it made such an impact, especially if you're reading it on a weekly or monthly basis, as opposed to us who just sat down and read it on the go.
No way, man. Get through it as quickly as you can. Just get through it.
So, with that being said, I am going to give it 3. I think it's a 3.
All right. Well, one other thing that we're going to give you is recommendations. Yes, it's that time of every single show where we like to give you other books in addition to The Eternauta, which you may be able to find at a comic book shop somewhere. I will say this, that the Fantagraphics collections are out of print, I believe, at this point. So they are very hard to come by. But so if you do find them at a flea market or something, snag them up, because they are worth a pretty penny. But you can definitely check out the Eternauta on Comixology for free if you have a Comixology Unlimited subscription. So, J.A.,
I am going to recommend, this one's also out of print, but I think it's a little bit easier to find. It's the Eternauta 1969. So we talked and alluded to this a little bit. It is only 60 pages long, as opposed to 300 some. The art is very different, much more abstract. The story is much more political, but it still has some of those same elements, the Swiss Family Robinson, the fear of the unknown, the snow killing everybody. But I also want to put on the tail end of that, the Netflix show that originally got me interested in it. They have season 1 is up online now on Netflix, and it takes you through about half of the story. Season 2 will conclude the story, so it's a limited series. And it is done really well. I think they captured the book and the essence of the book, but also modernized it, added some characters. So I would recommend reading both Eternauts and watching the Netflix show. Though I would probably read the original before I'd read the 69, because the 69 is informed by the original.
And speaking of interesting time travel stories, I've got another one for you for my recommendation. It is a story of what would happen if Matt Wagner's classic character of Grendel went back to the 1930s and fought who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men. That's right, The Shadow. It is the Grendel versus The Shadow by Matt Wagner, Brennan Wagner doing the assists. And for those folks that might not know a lot about the character of Grendel, it's basically what if Bruce Wayne, Batman, became a bad guy instead, like if he was a master criminal instead of the Caped Crusader. Hunter Rose has a genius-level intellect, is one of the best hand-to-hand fighters in the world, but instead he uses those gifts to run a criminal empire as the masked supervillain Grendel. Grendel finds a magic scroll that allows him to travel back to the 1930s. He then decides that it's a good idea to take over all the criminal organizations of that time, and that puts him in the crosshairs of the Shadow. And so you get some really, really great art. For those folks that loved our episode when we did Batman versus the Monster Men, which was also done by Matt Wagner, or even The Shadow Year One, Matt Wagner has great Art Deco style throughout this entire book. So it really does take you back to that particular era of America during the 1930s. And it just makes sense for these two dark forces to meet on the battlefield. Chad, finish us up here.
I mentioned in my my review here how this was a very grounded sci-fi story of survival. Honestly, the thing that it reminded me the most of was another grounded story of survival. Another one that got into my head when I read it, and that is The Walking Dead by Robert Kirkman, Charlie Adlard, Tony Moore. I remember back in the day, I had missed a lot of the initial Walking Dead excitement. But one day at a comic show, somebody was selling the first compendium for $10. And I'm like, yeah, I'll take a flyer for $10. I picked it up. I read it. I just tore through the thing. It was great. And then I kept finding myself, I watched the first season of the TV show, and I was waiting for the second season of the TV show, and then I would go to the bookstore and read the next chapter, then the next graphic novel, and the one after that. And then I'd be going through the Walmarts or Targets, and I knew I was in trouble because this book was just it had me. I was wrapped. It was all I could think about. But I was walking through the store, and they were selling buckets with like freeze-dried food. And I'm like, I should really get one of these buckets with all this food that's good for 25 years. And then I'm like, what the hell am I doing?
Are you becoming a prepper? A prepper.
Exactly. But yeah, that's because The Walking Dead was such a story of human survival in the face of some terrible disaster. And that's what the story reminded me of. It's these people that just kept going one foot in front of the other, even though they weren't necessarily super hopeful, even though easy solutions weren't in sight. So much of it was just surviving and moving on to the next thing. And it's gripping. It's engrossing. I literally had to force myself to stop because I wasn't going to start buying those prepper buckets. But I'd be lying if I didn't say we do have some canned veggies in here just in case, you know. But yeah, so my recommendation is going to be the first Walking Dead compendium. It's a phone book size. I would say it's like 35 issues, but it will get you into that story of survival.
Yeah, and it's something that I've been meaning to get. Maybe we'll have to do it on the Last Comic Shop, because here's a secret shame, folks. I've never read any of The Walking Dead. By the time The Walking Dead was a big thing, I was like, oh, maybe I should read it. But everybody was reading it, and everybody was talking about it, and there was the show. And I was just like, it's too late. It's too late for this old guy. I don't want to just be that guy that jumps on something because it's now popular. I wish I was reading The Walking Dead when nobody knew about it.
Sorry, Andy was the kid that read the Avengers books in the 90s instead of the X-Men like everybody else.
But if you were one of those kids that read either the Avengers or the X-Men or any of the comic books that we talk about on the Last Comic Shop and love what we're doing, make sure that you're rate, reviewing, and subscribing over at www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com. Again, this is our 249th episode. Next week will be our 250th episode, where we're going to be reviewing the first 2 volumes of All-Star Western with my brother Ethan. He's going to be stopping by with a brand new game to usher in our next 250 episodes. But that means you've got 249 evergreen episodes all about comics at your disposal. Go back in our back archives, find those episodes, listen to them, enjoy them. They're always there for you, and we're so happy to continue to talk about comic books every single week.
And we hope you enjoy your local comic shops. That's right. While we might be the Last Comic Shop podcast, we want you folks to get out there and support your local shops. Whether that is by finding things like the Eternauta, which I don't think any of us mentioned, your local libraries, but check it out if your library has one of those Hoopla or Doodah or whatever digital subscriptions. I know the Eternauta has been available in some of those spots. Or you could check out Jay's recommendation, which was more Eternauta, including, but not limited to, the Netflix show or the 1969 version. Or you can check out Andy's recommendation of Matt Wagner's Grendel versus the Shadow. Or you can go the route I suggested with The Walking Dead. Apparently it's a thing. Anyway, all of that and more potentially waits for you at your local comic shop, so make sure you check those folks out today. And then you can come back and find us on the socials. We're at Last Comic Shop Podcast on Blue Sky and Threads and all those places. And you can always go back to our website, www.lastcomicshoppodcast.com, where they can find what else, J.A.?
We always have a link to our merch store where you can get t-shirts, tote bags, coffee mugs, hats. This week, we've got a special on isolation shoots, so you can walk out in that alien snow and survive.
That's right. Really, all it is like you just stitch together a bunch of the t-shirts.
Yeah, but you got to have a cool-looking scuba mask.
That did look badass.
You know what? Just take one of our tote bags, cut some eye holes in, stick it over your head like your bag man from...
You got to seal up those holes. You got to get some plastic in there. And you can't touch the snow. Don't touch the alien snow. It's like all yellow snow all the time. Don't touch the yellow snow.
But what we want you to touch are all of the great things that you can get from bcwsupplies.com. J.A., what is that promo code that folks can use to save some money every single week?
So the promo code is LCSPOD. Use that promo code at checkout. Save yourself 10%.
On all those great things. Bags, boxes, boards. If you need it, they got it.
Get one of those clear plastic ones, and that could be the face mask for your...
Oh, there you go. See? Now you're thinking. Use the tote bag. Use our promo code at BCW Supplies, LCSPOD. Get yourself some plastic bags.
We are not responsible in the event of an alien invasion if you use our merchandise to go out into the alien snow for whatever may happen.
Thank you, Chad, for that legal disclaimer. Ah, man, I cannot wait for our 250th episode. Guys, it has been so awesome to do this show for the last 249 with both of you. So thank you again. And we hope that you will come back next week so that you can hear more thanks from the host with the most, Andy Larson, as well as more thanks from J.A. Scott and Chad Smith. For all of you listeners, making us one of your favorite comic book related podcasts. Until then, stay safe. Don't eat the yellow snow. Don't eat the alien snow. You don't know where those gerbos have been. It's got a lot of heavy metals in it. Sure, it's refreshing, but it'll kill you. Alien snow. Ha!
Comic Shop Podcast was a 2025 Black Angus production.